Hello, welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. I'm William Gallagher. Our sponsors this week are 1Password and Masterclass, two of my own personal favourites, as it happens. And I am joined by Wes Hilliard. And Wes, even before you say a word, there's something different here. You're sounding great. I think you've got a new Mac in your life, haven't you?
Yeah, another Mac has replaced the other Mac on the shelf, and it's making its residency quite nice. Very tiny guy, though. I'm going to have to put some stuff around it because that shelf's looking pretty empty.
Okay, so you give and you take away. On the one hand, you've got rid of your beloved MacBook Pro. I beloved it more than you did, but it was still beloved. And now it's back to a desk ornament, really, is what you're saying there. But a nice desk ornament.
I had to really rethink it because the MacBook Pro has a battery in it, so I can just move it around. It stays powered on. And it's a USB port to power it, so I could just bring it to the desk, plug it in. It's charging. It's connected to my monitor. I'm going to record from it. Connects to my peripherals, like my microphone, all in one go. Well, moving the Mac Mini around is different because it has the figure 8 plug, and I don't have one of those at every one of my stations. I could. I have a bag of them in my drawer. It's just I don't want to have to do that. So I've been thinking about a few things. First of all, I took, instead of bringing the Mac over here, I brought the podcast to the Mac. So I realized I didn't need to move my MacBook at all. I just needed to get the microphone hooked up because I record from my Vision Pro. And now I have the ultra-wide desktop to my right with my recording studio open, Safari in front of me, notes to my left. But the Mac Mini is on the shelf across the room. And all I've done is snaked a cable from the front USB port to the microphone that I record from. That's the only thing that needed to change. I didn't need the whole dock, the setup, or the monitor, or nothing like that. So, good solution there. HomeKit Insider, though, is still complicated because it's a video show. So, I'm going to experiment with the cable isn't attached to anything. I'll just basically move the microphone to that desk where I record from and leave the Mac Mini in its thing. There's a monitor under the shelf behind a closed door, so I could open that door to see the display to set up my camera setup for the show, and then just leave it alone and look into the camera because the camera's remote. It's an iPhone, so it does the continuity camera. I don't have to have anything. So again, the setup should be straightforward. We'll find out if that catches on fire next time I'm on the show or not. But finally, and I'll hush, I've come up with a separate solution. In the mail, coming tomorrow, and I will be writing about this, is a little portable battery with a AC outlet. And I've also ordered a 0.5 meter figure 8 AC cable. So let's try to create a little portable Mac Mini that I can power from USB-C. That would be cool.
I have so many questions. But we've only got about an hour or so. Oh, actually, I should say this. We've only got about an hour before it's Apple Insider Plus, which this was your idea. It's about Christmas gift giving, or as I like to say, Christmas gift receiving, but particularly about technology and what we give to people and what we want from them. That last bit was me. Again, this sounds like you're basically buying your own Christmas presents all along. Is that fair?
No. I mean, the lists I've provided are gift ideas. I generally go to these kinds of devices for my friends and family because it's like they're never going to buy it on their own, but it'll improve their lives, and this is what I usually go for. So that's kind of my thinking process.
Okay, right. Back to my questions then. I think I unconsciously assumed that because you're wearing Apple Vision Pro, that you were recording through the microphones that I presumed were on Apple Vision Pro, but I realised in my entire 30 minutes of wearing one, I didn't even look at recording and things like that. I didn't think of it.
Yeah. Well, you have to be able to make FaceTime calls and everything.
Oh,
so,
sure. Yes,
and
of course.
It's actually several beamforming microphones. We've never tried it on the show. Maybe we should record 5 minutes with the Apple Vision Pro microphone sometime. I'm sure there would be a difference because right now I'm recording through the Audio Technica, I can't remember, X1000, whatever, and it sounds great. I have to turn down the volume because it picks up too much. The Vision Pro microphones, though, I would have to assume is akin to recording through an iPhone. It gets the job done, not like an audio call iPhone, just like through the iPhone microphone. It's an excellent microphone, but it doesn't have the range, and it's definitely not going to capture as much of the bass of my voice. Maybe come through a little bit more tinny. You would be able to tell if I was recording through these mics, but it's a test we'll have to run sometime, because in the continuity feature, like right now where I'm using the virtual desktop, Apple Vision Pro shows up as a microphone in the microphone selection screen. So,
well, I think maybe we should devote this entire episode to microphones, and in that spirit, I should say I actually managed to break a microphone a few months ago. Now, it fell off the stand and never worked again, but fortunately I had some wireless mics I used for some video recording, so I am in fact now speaking to you through a Hollyland M2 Lark thing, and it's like I wear it like it's a Star Trek badge, so every now and again the temptation to tap it and go, ops or something like that occasionally interrupts the odd recording, but weirdly they seem to be better than the wired mic. I think that's why I was assuming you were using wireless as well. But Mac Mini, you've got one, you should be cherishing it. Are you going to buy Satechi's new hub for it? And that would solve everything for you in some way. No?
Well, that's a good question. I honestly don't know. There's actually plenty of ports in this Mac Mini. If it was on my desk, I would utilize that SD card slot, but I have one in my Thunderbolt dock, so it's a cool product. I might get it just because it's cool and it attaches to my Mac Mini, but I don't even think I would use it. There's the 2 USB ports in the front and 3 in the Thunderbolt in the back. I'm good, and I also have access to plenty of docks. But I guess again, if I was moving this to a desk setup and I wanted more access to direct ports, this would be a great addition to my lineup. Like, it's just not for me. Not with it on a shelf anyway.
I do want to say that you're saying I have access to docs. Sounds really suspicious, but I'm not going to pursue that. I should say, actually, moments before we started recording this, Satechi announced that you've seen this, the old Mac Mini, there was a Satechi hub that was exactly the right size. Now there's one that's exactly the right size for the new, much smaller Mac Mini. Or rather, there will be. Quite unusually, I think, maybe in order to be the first to announce it, they've released details of what it will have, and there's a nice picture of how neatly it fits the new Mac Mini, but they aren't announcing the price yet, which is a curious thing.
But you can get 20% off though if you pre-register.
Yeah. I'm wary of that. 20% off whatever it turns out to cost.
Well, they always do. Yeah, they always do big sales though. They're a big sale company. I will note though, the one reason why I would buy it is because it has an NVMe enclosure for up to 4 terabytes of expansion, and there's often 4 terabyte SSDs on sale for less than $200. So this would be an excellent way to upgrade your Mac Mini's storage and basically quote unquote internal storage. It's not a Thunderbolt hub, but you don't need a Thunderbolt hub for SSD over USB. I mean, it's fast enough. You would notice a difference over Thunderbolt, of course, but for most applications, for like storing photos and videos and stuff like that, you don't need that high of a speed, especially if you're not like editing over the hub or anything.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because I would be doing video editing and things. Would it be fast enough?
It'd be fast enough. You could do it. It's just not as fast as Thunderbolt. Okay. It would be the bottleneck in that operation, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do always wonder how you pronounce their name, because if they're Japanese, if it is a Japanese company and they phrase it in Japanese, it would be Satechi. But I've never heard anyone at their company say it out loud. This is always a conundrum with these companies. Yes. You never know exactly how to pronounce it, and then they always come out with some wackadoo. Actually, it's Satechi. No, like we'll hear it one day. Maybe we'll go to CES and ask them directly.
It's Sony instead of Sony. Although actually, there's a reason for that. It's a slight corruption of Sony, which is a wartime. This is a too big a story. Maybe if I can find where I found that out, I'll put a link in the show notes. But don't hold your breath, because it was a long time ago I heard it. I'll give you already. Yeah. Oh
no, I'll give you one and we can move on. I believe the phone company, the flip phone company we all know and love, people would call Nokia, is actually pronounced Nokia. But anyway.
All right. I actually went to Nokia's head office in, I want to say Finland, in the 1990s. or so, and all these people were walking around with what now seems like giant phones, but just kind of somehow magically stuck to their belts and things, and oh, did I want one of those? And then what happened to them?
You got arrested, right? And they had to confiscate your iPhone and check it for... I mean, we don't talk about what you did in Finland, but it was a lot, right? So,
well, I've talked enough about it on, interrogations and things. But I see where you're going with this. On your mind is what happens with iPhones and police. Give them credit, you could never crack a Nokia phone, I presume. And if you could, there was nothing on there anyway except for a few phone numbers. Whereas an iPhone holds your life. And so naturally the police and all sorts of law enforcement people are quite keen. And we learnt this week, well, actually, the thing is, I know the headline. I know that we learnt exactly what police can retrieve from your iPhone with a hacking tool, this Graykey thing. But I didn't know what the extent is. Should I become an international jewel thief? What should I be concerned about?
Well, Graykey can't get much, especially so. Apple's been doing some fun stuff. I think we discussed it on a show 1 or 2 ago, where police had noticed that they would arrest someone, lock up their phone in a Faraday cage, come back to it later, and it had rebooted somehow, which puts it into a before first unlock state, which makes it much harder to access data, basically useless for their needs. And they were blaming Apple, and we were like, well, it seems like something Apple could do, but we hadn't heard of this feature. Now it's known Apple is doing this. They released it as a part of an update to, I believe, 18.1, and it's happening. It's meant to prevent thieves from being able to access data easily, but it's actually working against police, which is the usual thing with Apple. So, again, I believe we discussed that entire story before, but now it comes back to Graykey, which might actually be or one of the technologies that police and federal agents use to access iPhones. And it's clear that even before the Apple feature for before first unlock for rebooting phones remotely when they're disconnected from cellular, or not even that, it's left inactive for about 2 to 3 days. If they're completely inactive for a couple of days, they will reboot themselves and put them in that state. Well, Graykey couldn't actually access much data anyway. If you look at this list that's in this story, it shows that many of the most recent iPhones only show partial data releases from Graykey, which this little box, you connect your phone to it, and it basically tries to pull social media content, photo libraries, text messages. It does what it can, but apparently it does even less now, which is nice.
Well, not from the perspective of law enforcement, but I suppose, yeah, okay. Just thinking that through. My mind's actually gone to, so if I ever forget my passcode and things, Graykey can't help me there at all. I'm on my own.
You don't want it to. I mean, this is one of those situations that we've discussed before. I'm on the side of old-fashioned investigations should trump modern technology harvesting, because at the end of the day, this is all private information, and giving too much power to authority can lead to other consequences. So we've been catching criminals for the entirety of human history without having access to their iPhone data. I think we can continue to do it safely. Sometimes these things do get cracked and it does help. I'm not saying that it's not useful information, but it shouldn't be the default. We shouldn't have the FBI knocking on Apple's door every time they want to unlock an iPhone, asking for a backdoor to encryption. And Graykey was a sidestep from that. But I believe Apple is actively working to thwart these kinds of hacking tools. And these tools are developed by nasty, foreign entities looking to make a bunch of money off of the technology, and our government is paying them for it. I think it's just a bad deal all the way around, and Apple's actively working to defeat these products, and I think they should be.
How about this? Let's move away from that on something else that Apple may be actively working on, although I have reason to doubt it. You've heard the story in the last few days that an Apple TV set, so not Apple TV, the box, but an actual TV set with an Apple logo on the front of it, could be coming back. Apple may be evaluating this idea. And I take it that means more than somebody over a sandwich in Apple Park thinking, do you know, it'd be nice to have one. It sounds like they've at least, put some money behind thinking about it. Does that sound plausible to you?
Gene Muster must be jumping up and down. He's so excited. No,
Sorry. He's the guy who said every year for years and years and years, it's going to be next Tuesday kind of thing. I'd forgotten about that. He could be right after all. Wouldn't that be good for him?
The longest play in Apple rumor history. No, I think this is different from what Gene Muster actually envisioned, because the concept then, and it made sense at the time, was Apple was going to release like a 65-inch LED 4K television kind of thing, right? Like they were going to release a Sony TV, but it was made by Apple. I don't think this is what that is. I think Apple is going to just release another studio display, but make it an Apple TV as well, because it already has that chipset in it. So you'll be able to switch to TV mode. I think that's the whole story here. Maybe there will be a 32-inch version. I would be very surprised if Apple releases the Apple Studio television and it's 65 inches. They could, and it would operate over Thunderbolt, and you'd have to get an HDMI to Thunderbolt adapter to plug your PlayStation 5 into it. But I'm joking. I hope that's not true. But
I was believing every word you said there. Okay.
Yeah, that's just a very Apple thing to do. Well, it's all Thunderbolt, and all you need is this dock, and then you can plug in your No, just don't do that. I could seriously envision them doing that. Could you imagine them selling this 65-inch aluminum television that weighs 1,000 pounds? But
just how much would the stand cost? That's the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't sell you just a stand. It's a robotic stand. Remember, it follows you around the room.
That's true.
It's not 3 separate products, William. It's one product. No,
it's not a stand. It's a lifestyle. Yes. Okay. But
I think this is interesting. They could. It's bending one of two ways. It could be a traditional television. The only reason why I'm still against that is because TVs are expensive. Apple does like selling expensive things, but an Apple television would start at $2,000. I feel like, just given the market that they're in and how they sell things, and it would need to be in it. Looking at Apple TV 4K, when was the last one? 2021, correct? 2022.
Oh. Goodness, I can't remember. I know I have an Apple TV 4K, but I have the version that came out of Pixel before they added all the karaoke stuff, for which I'm grateful. Frankly, I can't do any of that stuff, but I can't remember how long I've had it. Okay.
They upgraded every couple of years. We're actually due for one. I'm honestly expecting one in the spring. Maybe we'll see. 25 is the year for another Apple TV. I think we'll see what they do, but that could give credence to this whole idea. I still think Apple should partner with a company that just makes an incredibly dumb, beautiful monitor that has no features. It just turns on and off and has an HDMI port in it. That would be the way to go if I was Apple. Get Sony to make this incredibly beautiful OLED panel. Go nuts, but have it have no features, and then you plug an Apple TV into it for the brains, and you can buy it as a bundle or something. That's how I would handle it. But if maybe you want to go maximum profit, you would make a full television, and it's not a very lucrative thing because people buy them and keep them for 15 years. So it's never seemed like a thing Apple would do.
Presumably, you can connect an Apple TV 4K into a studio display now, so I don't see that. If they were going to do it, and you're actually making me think it's more likely than I thought at the start, I would expect it to be one screen, one device, everything built in. That actually feels more Apple-y than expecting you to get a
lot of
set-top
money.
box.
The 27-inch studio display is $1,500 starting. And that's for a monitor that competes with other $600, $700 monitors in the same pixel density. Studio display is beautiful. It has good features and it has a good design, but competitively on the market, you can get similar specs for a lower price. You look at a television. My Sony TV, I bought one of those newer. I bought an OLED. It has, I forget, but it does 4K, 120 and stuff like that. It's a bit more modern. I wanted it for my PlayStation, and I think it set me back something like $1,600. And that's for a big hunk of plastic, right? So I can imagine Apple doubling that easily for a similar model with a similar spec sheet. Who's buying TVs like that, let alone every couple of years? So it feels unrealistic. That's why I think I've heard. I'm not originating this rumor. I didn't make it up. I'm hearing it from other people speculating that this is actually just an iteration of the Studio Display that can run Apple TV, which I think makes total sense because Samsung did it, and their 27-inch monitor actually is a little smart TV. I think that's awesome. I honestly, at my desk, sure, my iPad or my Mac is plugged in. I could just go to the Apple TV app, but sometimes having the built-in interface is nice. Or if it had an HDMI port, which it doesn't, I could plug in my PlayStation 5 into it. The only way I can play my PS5 on my Studio Display, but I have to go through a capture card through my Mac or iPad to see it on the display, and it's just not the same thing. So if Apple actually committed to making this a quote-unquote television, it would be a Studio Display with an HDMI port or two, capable of switching between the modes, and I think that would be a nice move by Apple. It would increase the value of an existing product rather than introducing a completely unnecessary product to compete in a market that's already packed with options.
Back in the day, in the UK, when we had only 4 channels and they all came over aerials and things, I actually had one of those Macs that had a TV tuner in it, and in my flat in London at the time, it was my only TV set, and I really liked it. There were some strange things like you could record, but it was a stereo TV set when you were watching live, and recordings were in mono. That would really throw you. You stop it to take a phone call and start it up again, and the sound is so radically different because of the recording. But I missed that a little bit. It was handy. Why can't they just fit an Apple TV 4K into a MacBook and be done with it?
Honestly, I'm still hopeful that Apple will release a dongle like Apple TV. Like, if we continue with the same box, it needs to be a video game console. Like, really push the limits, put an M series chip in it, let it run Assassin's Creed, whatever, with the ray tracing on a 4K 60-inch television. That's the direction that box needs to go for $200+. But I think
not with you on that one, because I wouldn't play a game on it. But
no, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the use case for this product, but this is where I'm getting at. If it's going to cost that much money and have that much storage, it's in the video game console price range market already. Just make it capable of running those games, and people will buy it for that purpose. Not many people, but it will happen. And then you could go down market with the Apple TV. And this is my point. I think Apple should make a Apple TV 4K dongle that is what it is now, a limited chipset that basically can access Apple TV and Netflix and doesn't run all of the games. It would still run tvOS. Honestly, it could be the same exact Apple TV 4K we have now, just packed into a much smaller box without any cooling whatsoever. So it wouldn't be able to get too intensive on certain things. It would have upper throttling limits so you couldn't run any crazy games or anything like that. You would use it just for media purposes, and it could be a little USB thumb drive type design. And I think that would be excellent.
Like an Amazon Fire Stick. That's what you're thinking.
And then then Apple would have both on the market. The people who really wanted the games to run on this thing could go up market and spend $200-$300, $250 like they used to. I think it's $220 now for the higher price model, and Apple could go down to $150 for this small thumb drive. So it's just my suggestion.
I'd accidentally snap off that thumb drive and then lose it. That's what would happen. That's what happened with me. We might have to buy several of them. Apple would be all right with that. Well, good point. Okay.
Of course, the dream is, forget all that. I'm going to invent a product that doesn't exist. Just make a sound bar that is a HomePod and an Apple TV.
Okay. Right.
Plug in one wire to your TV. It's an Apple TV. There's no syncing. There's no wireless audio issues. It's all one unit. The Apple TV software runs off of this home bar, I guess, and you plug it into your Apple TV, and you now get all of the technological goodness of a HomePod and a soundbar, and then connect 2 large HomePods or 2 HomePod minis as surround sounds. Basically, do a Sonos, Apple. Just do a Sonos. That's all we need.
To an extent. Don't do the last
Don't
thing
do what
Sonos did, but up to there.
Are you...
Yes.
Are you running the Apple TV beta, Apple tvOS 18
Weird
beta?
you should say that, because I was about to say to you, of all the betas in all the land, it's the one I don't walk into. I accidentally once upgraded macOS to a beta, and I seem to be constantly stumbling into that. So at the moment, both of my Macs are on betas, which is very risky, and you shouldn't do it. What happens if it all goes wrong? Terrible things. My watch, I never put the beta on. iPhone, I do. iPad, after the iPhone seemed to be okay for a bit. I don't believe I have ever put the beta of tvOS on, and right now, today, I am regretting it, only because I saw the headline on AppleInsider that there is a Snoopy screensaver. I didn't get that mixed up with the watch, did I? I did get that right.
No, this is basically the watch face just blown up for the TV, but it's better in a lot of ways because the watch face is, you only look at it for a second to check the time. You get a little animation, you put your arm down. This is a full-on screensaver, and it's really cute. I really like it.
Isn't that weird that it would be on the TV? Hang on. Apple TV is famous for having utterly beautiful screensavers. I think I've cut the time down before it appears to the minimum so I can just enjoy them across the room. And then recently there was that thing where YouTube got a stopwatch and figured out that the minimum time was, 2 minutes of inactivity, something like that. So they had their screensaver cut in at 1 minute 59. And for some reason, and who knows why, YouTube's attempt to do beautiful landscape images was really ugly. Absolutely horribly pixelated. And then Apple went, aye, we're not having that. Pulled it down to there, it comes in at 158 or something. And all the gorgeous landscapes are back. Now we apparently are having gorgeous landscapes replaced by Snoopy animation. And it does not feel just wrong to you.
Well,
nice, but wrong.
I think it's fun because now you can swipe between your different screensaver options. I really enjoy the aerials view. Sometimes I still put that back on. I've actually found that I enjoy my photos. It's the portraits version now. There's a new portraits screensaver that came out, I believe, with 18, maybe before that. I can't remember exactly. But it's where it takes it's like the photo watch face. It algorithmically finds suitable images that would be great on a television and shows them as your screensaver and slides through them over time. Excellent way to rediscover photos. You can choose between showing pets and people and select certain people to include or exclude. Nice little tool there. And then now you got Snoopy. You can swipe over to that. And if you notice in our imagery, there are vents in the picture. It's because Andrew took a photo of it through a projector, and I think he didn't realize. But
okay, I've done that. Yes.
Yeah, I think that was funny. But it's great. Snoopy animates there every now and then. And I was wondering about this, how they were going to pull it off. It's always animating, so it's not like the pixels are going to kill your screen or anything. So the squiggly outlines are always kind of doing the motion as if it's being animated. But there's a lot of stills here, so it'll introduce Snoopy, and it'll do a skit, right? Snoopy's accepting an award on a stage or something. And then it switches to him on the doghouse dreaming that he's accepting this award, and then it's just an idle of him being on the doghouse. And then every few minutes it'll show him move or grab something or grab a typewriter, or Woodstock will show up, right? And it's just doing this over and over time. And again, it's doing like pixel shifting and the subtle animations and the lines and stuff, keep it moving. It's cute. It's really well done. I like it. I think we're going to be using this one a lot as well. It's so easy to switch between them. You don't have to go to settings. You just swipe up while you're on the screensaver, pick your different one. We're gonna be using this one a lot.
Why is it on Apple TV and not the Mac? It seems more Mac-like screensaver.
It's inevitable. Just like the aerials coming to Mac, I think this is something that could. Apple pretty much bought all the rights to the Peanuts, so I feel like this is just something they've built and will roll out to other platforms eventually. Imagine a screensaver on iPad. That'd be cool.
Okay. Every time I pick up my iPad, it's to use it, though, so
Exactly. I mean, that's where we're kind of getting into, well, what's the utility of an iPad? I would love an always-on display iPad, but
Yes, actually, so would I. I remember when the always-on iPhone came. Stephen Robles, who used to do this show, for the first year, he wouldn't have it on. He just found it far too distracting. And then because I didn't upgrade the iPhone that year, I came in a year later, I did upgrade, and it was the first thing I left on, and I've enthused about it since. And I think Stephen actually tried it after that, and I may have, I should check in with him. Have I changed his mind permanently? But even now, right now on my desk, there's my lovely iPhone 16 Pro Max telling me the time. And there's a note underneath saying, you're talking for too long about Snoopy. I see my own phone's point there. This episode is brought to you by 1Password. I said at the start of this week's episode that 1Password is a personal favourite, and I realised as I was saying it that personal is the key word. I've been using 1Password for such a long time to hold my passwords, obviously, but also credit card numbers, software licenses, secure all sorts of things. But for all that 1Password does for me personally, it isn't only for individuals. There are family versions, there are team versions, and now there's more. Now there is 1Password extended access management for companies. You know how it is. It used to be that companies had these rigid IT policies where all employees used all the apps that they were told to and the web services that were mandated, and they all did them on the devices that the company would give as part of the job. Today, no company has any hope of laying down such a rigid path for their employees. Employees are going to use their own devices, they are going to use the tools they want, and they're going to do it with really good reasons. They're going to do it in order to get their job done the best way they can. But you, as a company owner, don't know what the sites and apps are. You don't even know what devices are being used on your company network. So for all of the brilliance of this technology empowering your staff, every bit of it can be a security risk for your company unless you use the new 1Password extended access management. It's the first security solution to all of this. It makes sure that every user credential is strong and is protected. It makes sure every device is known and is healthy, and it means that every app is visible. 1Password extended access management is device management, but without the traditional limitations. It is security for the way companies have to work today. And speaking of today, right now it's generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, and it's in beta for Google Workspace. Check it out for yourself at onepassword.com/AppleInsider Podcast. So that's 1Password, the digit 1 and the word password.com/AppleInsider Podcast. All one word, Apple Insider Podcast. And thank you to 1Password for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast. How about this? You just said about Snoopy being basically that Apple bought everything. Apple has the rights to, I think, everything to do with peanuts. Very nearly everything. It might have to share on some things. Certainly has the rights to the original things. But the key thing is it has the rights. Whereas certain other companies don't have the rights to things they're using. So we had a thing this week about, I presume it's pronounced Musi, that it was taken down. Is it Musi and TV Time or something like that were taken down? Now, I know the Musi story. Do you know the TV Time one?
Yes, I dug into this quite a lot, actually. So this goes with, there's a trend lately, and I'm not really sure why it seems like it's been discussed more. Apple does copyright claims all the time and removes apps from the App Store all the time. I think, honestly, the only reason why we're talking about it now is because these are more high profile and the users are more vocal on social media. The developers are more vocal on social media. So it's just leading to a wider conversation. And I think it's a good conversation to have of the overall question is, does Apple have too much power over the App Store when it comes to things like copyright claims? Because, at least according to the developers, it feels like Apple is coming in, getting a copyright claim, and then just kicking the app out baselessly, just saying, oh, well, here's a claim, throw it out until they fix it. And I wanted to discuss this because that is not the process. I've actually dug in and found out what the process is, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened here.
Well, can I just say, with the Musi story, it's really clear. They were playing music from YouTube. They weren't paying anybody for the music. Yeah. How can it not be? Yeah,
Musi is cut and dry. Musi, this is one of those situations where I think Musi and the users were getting away with something, and they're mad that they got caught. Allegedly. I don't sue me. I just think this is one of those situations where it's complicated. Okay.
So
YouTube
TV time, I've got to say, by the way, being in the UK, TV time is a problem for me because I used to work on Radio Times. It's like the equivalent of TV Guide, but there is a rival called TV Times. So when I first read TV Time in the headline, I was misreading it completely. And I'd never heard of this app before, but apparently it's big.
Yeah,
so
I've used TV Time before. I want to get to that in a sec because Musi actually ties back to a different app that was taken down, Juno, that we talked about a while back for Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah.
So just to go in order, Juno was taken down because YouTube claimed that it was altering the UI too much and eliminating interface elements to make it too unique to itself and not making it show that it was actually YouTube. And there was some arguments back and forth, and ultimately YouTube went back to Apple and said, we're not going to resolve this, kick it from the store, and Apple said, okay. And the developer, Christian Selig, said, you know what, basically that's what happened. He felt like YouTube didn't want to budge. They weren't giving him answers as to how to actually fix the app. He felt like they just wanted it off the store and was making the claim spuriously to get it off of the store, and ultimately that's what happened. And he didn't want to fight Apple or Google in this situation. We discussed this on the show. I believe, Christian here, I think YouTube just didn't want a clearly well-made competitor on Apple Vision Pro, even though YouTube isn't there to compete. It's just, it was the most popular option on the App Store. It was doing well, and because of the API key, not because of anything Christian was doing, it wasn't serving ads either. For whatever reason, YouTube's API doesn't serve ads in it. YouTube needs to fix this if they don't like it, because this is how it works. They make it public, they make it available, and they don't like how it works, so what are you doing, YouTube? Anyway, Musi, similar situation, different problem. They were using the API calls to get content, but it's not showing ads. They don't have licensed access to the music. It was specifically being used for music. I think this gets into a more area of you guys are creating a streaming platform using YouTube as a backend, and that is a clear violation of like everything that has to do with copyright and paying the people. Leaving it up to YouTube to take care of everything isn't exactly okay. So now to TV Time. TV Time's a little bit simpler. It's an app that lets you track shows that you're watching. You can post GIFs and reactions to certain episodes, or have a little community. And people were uploading custom artwork for different TV shows and things. And that artwork was not vetted, and it was copyright violating. And a company that owned the copyright put in a complaint with Apple saying this app on your App Store is violating copyright. So what Apple does... So does that make sense so far, William?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Apple doesn't like this. Apple does its usual thing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so it's actually a public page, and it's linked in the article. Apple has a web page for companies to make these claims, and if you read the fine print, it actually explains the process a little bit. It doesn't go into super detail, but basically what happens is, here's what Apple says. If you believe that an app or search ad available through the App Store violates your intellectual property rights, you can submit your claim here. Please know that Apple does not investigate claims regarding branded terms used as search ad keywords. In most cases, content available through the App Store is made available by third-party providers, and upon receiving your submission, we will contact the provider of the disputed content regarding your claim and ask that they work with you directly to resolve the issue. So all Apple actually really does is act as not even a mediator, but a middleman. If the Apple has all of the contact information of all the developers on the App Store, so the copyright claimant doesn't necessarily have the ability to walk up to the developer and say, "Hey, we have a problem," because sometimes finding that information isn't easy. I know the App Store page has a website, but then you have to find a contact sheet. Apple just skips all that and says, we're going to put you directly in contact with them. They alert the developer, your app is being claimed in violation of the Copyright Act. So they did a DMCA takedown of content on TV Time. TV Time responded to this, and now this is where it gets fuzzy, because this is where all the allegedlys get in, because we don't have official information other than a quote from the owner of TV Time. So, and again, they have a bias, they have a dog in the race, so take this for what you will.
Sure.
But he claims that the claimant didn't provide enough information or proof of ownership, but they went ahead and took down the content anyway, and for some reason the app was still kicked from the App Store. Now, we don't know exactly how this happened, but Apple does say that they don't spuriously kick apps out of the App Store because of a copyright claim. The only time an app is kicked is if resolution is not reached. So the claimant, now this is where I'm assuming something went wrong. The owner of TV Time did say the claimant had a financial incentive added to this claim, saying that, you have to pay us or something. I'm not really entirely sure what they meant here, but TV Time refused. So I'm assuming that's where the claim went unresolved, and the claimant went back to Apple and said, hey, this isn't getting fixed, and Apple removed the app. Now, since then, very quickly, actually, the app was reinstated. Something got fixed between the claim and the claimant. It wasn't with Apple. TV Time didn't go begging hands and knees to Apple, because Apple, they're not going to litigate, and this is key here. Apple does not fight with the developers. They don't argue with them. They don't argue with the claimant. They just look at the official paperwork. If there's a copyright claim that is unresolved, the app has to be removed. A, B, C, D. That's it. So I think this is where it gets tricky, and there is a lot of conversation about, is Apple abusing their power or kicking apps? So having this information in the story, what do you think's going on here, William?
Well, when you put it like this, I can't actually see what else Apple could do. There's a legal argument that they are the publisher, therefore they are responsible for anything. But if it's user-generated, there's all sorts of fuzzy lines there. You can't allow copyright infringement to continue. You have to stop it. How else can you stop it other than withdrawing the app, at least temporarily? So I think I feel sorrier for TV Time, since they didn't initiate the problem. So they're not like Musi trying something on, as it seems. But it just seems like a practical inevitability, really.
Yes. I think we're going to see more of these kinds of stories, and I don't want to side with Apple or the developers or anyone here. I just want to say these things happen, and they're resolved internally. For this gets back to a different issue, and I think this happens a lot, especially with Apple, because it's such a big company with a lot of money. People expect, Apple is doing everything, and they should solve everything. And I don't think either of those is true, right? With a copyright claim that is a legal entity, Apple is not a judiciary court. They're not going to arbitrate a dispute and decide who's right or wrong. If Apple can open TV Time, see the infringing information, and that's the end of the discussion. It's being infringed upon. There has to be something done. And if there's no action taken by TV Time, whether they did or not, again, we don't know the background of all of this. Something didn't get resolved. Apple removed it. This is not an automated system. I have it from anonymous sources that deal with this stuff to say that they've dealt with these kinds of systems before, and Apple is 100% human here. It's not like there's a program going through every copyright claim and deciding yes or no. That's not how this works. There's a human involved every step of the way, making decisions on, is there a copyright claim? Does this need to be removed? And then remove it. So I think there's a lot of confusion out there over how this works, because this gets back to app developers dealing with the other side, the app approvals, right? What is that called? The system for where apps are approved by the developer, by the app. Gosh, I can't.
Yeah,
think
that
of words
one.
today.
Yes,
Apple's app developer thing, that where they process apps. My gosh, why can't I think of the name of this entity? Anyway,
Thing will
They
do.
are-
Thing is a good word. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
they're-
The thing.
Developers are very upset at this, and they think that it's too automated and it makes the wrong decision. Apps are rejected all the times. App review, my God, apps are rejected all the time by app review, seemingly for random reasons. Again, because that one is human operated, but on a massive scale. They're dealing with millions of apps, so they hire a lot of these people to do it, and they make mistakes, and it gets frustrating. So there's a lot of bad blood in this area, and now we're dealing with copyright strikes on top of all of that. I think Apple has a responsibility here to get in front of all of this and be more transparent about how they're handling app rejections for app review and how they're handling copyright claims. Because, yes, they have a website with a statement on it, but I still don't think that's quite enough. I think they should honestly publish a white paper saying this is exactly how... Let's create a fake litigation issue and explain an ABCD scenario of this is what happens when a copyright claim comes in and the person does what they're supposed to. App isn't ever kicked from the store. Nothing's ever done. Claim comes in. Person doesn't do what they need to do. App is kicked. Right? Like, just walk us through each of these. Be public and transparent about it. The problem with this is it's not very pretty. Apple likes their pretty guidebooks, their, we're saving the planet kind of PSAs. They don't want to be like, well, this is how developers might get screwed over if they get a copyright claim. It's not a very fun document, is it?
This episode is brought to you by Masterclass. We've talked about Masterclass before and said that this online video this mentorship by the world's best creatives is such a bargain for us. But maybe we're being a little bit selfish there because, there is that little holiday season coming up and you could make someone's year, which is what happened to me. Actually, I was bought a year of Masterclass as a present, and it's just really bad of me. I can't actually now remember any other present I got that year. Anyway, Masterclass, it's a streaming platform where your loved ones or you can learn from over 200 world-class instructors. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. Whatever your field, whatever you're interested in, Masterclass has the people you would most want to learn from. So for me, last time I mentioned being utterly riveted by Jodie Foster's masterclass on film directing. I've now worked through Aaron Sorkin's writing class. I'm about to start Shonda Rhimes' TV writing masterclass, but I could also nip over here and see a bit of Martin Scorsese's class, because that has sections on technology. James Cameron talks about creating technology for Avatar. And I've got to tell you this one, I'm also queuing up to watch this one masterclass with ex-CIA officers taking us through intelligence gathering. Yeah. Plus, on top of all of these things, Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/AppleInsider15 for the current offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. So, masterclass.com/AppleInsider, the digit 1, the digit 5. And thank you to Masterclass for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. On the one hand, I'm thinking Apple could do all of that and we'd still have the same furore, because a developer who, this is stepping away from music and TV time because I don't know even the detail you do. Someone in that position could make a fuss about it, even if they were, say, totally in the wrong. And you could be pretty sure that most of the customers wouldn't go read Apple's white paper. Epic Games actually comes to mind for the way they were pretending shock horror. We've been thrown off. Nobody told us why, when the truth is they'd actually planned it for months to achieve that. I could see that. So Apple, save your bother, I think. Yeah.
Well, I think the key here is people seem to think that Apple just randomly kicks apps from the App Store. I am almost certain that's not happening. That's just that's too easy lawsuit material. They're obvious. So, and I can't go and make a spurious copyright complaint and Apple be like, believe me, he's obviously owns Mickey Mouse. Let's go and kick this app off the App Store. They do investigate the claim to that extent, right? They investigate the validity of the claim. Because when the person makes this claim, they have to submit documentation showing, hey, this is a DMCA takedown. We're filing the paperwork. We're taking these steps. This is the stuff that we own. Like, this is where I kind of take issue with TV Time's story here. If the claimant filed a copyright claim and didn't provide evidence of ownership, why would Apple believe them? Right? It just, I feel like the ball got dropped somewhere, and it's easy to do. We're all human, but yeah, I don't think we have the full story here, because again, we're only hearing it from one side as well. We don't know who the claimant was or what the copyrighted material was, and there's no way to verify any of that information unless someone squeals. So take it for what you will.
Yeah, except I suddenly remembered sometime last year, maybe the end of the year before, Facebook blocked some post of mine because it said there was a copyright violation. And I asked them about it, and they quietly unblocked it and never gave me a reason why. And I wrote the post. It was my writing, so I knew there was no infringement. So
that was likely
people
a bot.
make mistakes. Oh, right. Okay. I was being nice to people, and you're thinking botness. I can say this. Sorry,
YouTube and Facebook and social media do use bots for these types of things, yes.
I think when you are a developer, it can seem like Apple is a bit of a wall, because I did actually put out an app many years ago, a poetry app called River Passage, based on a poem by Jeff Phelps. And it went out as a poem app and fine. And suddenly at one point, the app review team came back to me and said, this isn't an app. This should be, I don't know, this should be a book rather than thing. I can't remember the logic for it, but I looked at their logic, and actually they were right. They had made a mistake on the original acceptance of this and let it through then. So I'd kind of unknowingly profited from human error then, and now human correction was coming in. I mean, the project was long gone, and actually, as great as Jeff is, as great as the poem was, the app development was hell for me. It was a real stone in my stomach. So the fact that it vanished from the App Store, but I've still got it on my iPhone, that seemed okay to me at the time. But there was no possibility of... it seemed like there was no possibility of arguing or disagreeing. It was like, this is the decision, you are gone, kind of thing. And even if I were in a position to go to lawsuits and things, I wouldn't over this, but I'm not. So you can see small developers seeing Apple as kind of the word of God, whether you agree or not. So I understand developers being upset. But.
Yeah, Apple definitely has an issue with being kind of a monolith, but I'll tell you the difference between Apple and other companies, and we can move on. Mm-hmm. Apple has a phone number. Google and Facebook do not, right?
I didn't realize that. Yes.
You can actually call a developer support team. Apple actually does really well at this. If you're a developer with an issue, and I know, again, it's a wall, and sometimes you want things to happen. Here's my take. Maybe this is a bad take. You can write me an email and tell me it's a bad take. I think a lot of times developers want to do things that are clearly in violation of Apple's guidelines, and they're frustrated more at the fact that it's a guideline than the fact that they can't get support. Because what happens is they'll call Apple and say, hey, I want to do this thing, and they'll say, yeah, you can't do that. And that's the end of the conversation, and they feel like they're talking to a monolith. And yes, Apple is the monolith in the situation. They make the decisions. They make the rules. Because Apple's like, well, that's against the rules. It's like, well, you made the rules, so why don't you change them?
Yes.
And that's usually seems to be where a lot of this angst comes from. But it's not, I don't believe it's actually directed at, well, it's a broken system that's terrible. It's more like, well, I want to do this, and they won't let me. And I think it's an important distinction when you're reading these stories.
You're talking about moving on, and there's an obvious thing here. Apple has all of this stuff, but also I know that you wanted to talk about something that I thought you were kidding about. Basically, Apple has Bigfoot. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, is this a new employee? Is this a code name for something? What is Bigfoot, and why should I care about it?
Well, you don't care because it's a new emoji inbound for 2025.
Right, so moving on next. Okay, all right. Is it really that time of year again when they announce... well, Apple doesn't announce it, isn't it? There's like a worldwide consortium that says, go on then, we'll have... What in the world is a Bigfoot emoji? Like a large footprint or something?
No, it's the classic Sasquatch walking across the frame of a camera, his arms and legs extended. That pose is what's suggested.
Well, I can't think of how many times I would use that in a message.
Honestly, I have no idea what I would use it for, but it's coming alongside other things, a treasure chest. trumpet. But I look at these and I wonder, can Genmoji generate these emoji instead of having now? Maybe we can get ahead of the game and have a Bigfoot emoji now.
Something I didn't appreciate for a long time, so forgive me if this is incredibly obvious, but give me the name, smiley face, that's the emoji. If I, for some reason, and who knows why, decide in a message to put a smiley face, there it is on my iPhone, looking very nice and yellow and smiley. It arrives on a friend's Android phone, and it's a smiley face, but it is not the same icon. What's happened is, the phone has been told, look up the icon for an emoji, a smiley, and it's shown its version of it. With Genmoji,
it's a Unicode thing.
Yes, just like different fonts and things, I want letter 65, and it shows the correct letter for that. With Genmoji, since it's not Unicode, it is on your device, you're creating it, does messages send a picture of that to something, or does it just always arrive as, in brackets, something to do with Bigfoot, written out in text?
Well, Genmoji returns a horrifying image if you type in Sasquatch, but it's like it's like a hairy body with a gorilla head, but in a couple of them, their eyes are glowing. Anyway, I'm not sure what's going on there. Genmoji does not use Unicode. It is sent, quote unquote, as an image, but Apple's doing some fun back-end stuff. It's essentially a sticker, in the iOS parlance,
right?
But but it shows up as an emoji. And what's interesting is once you send it, it becomes a part of everyone in that conversation's sticker library. So they don't have to generate the image; they can then just go to their emoji picker and pick it. Now, if they don't pick it for some time, it'll fall off the back end. But that's a cool little feature of Genmoji. Even if you don't have an iPhone with Genmoji on it, you can have the generated emojis show up in your emoji library.
So you're telling me on my iPhone I have a library of stickies and emojis?
You do.
How do I get rid of this? How do I switch it off?
You can turn it off, funny enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me separately about
keyboard
that.
settings. Yeah. Turn off the emoji keyboard.
Okay.
And you can also turn off the suggestions in the emoji keyboard. There's settings for the emoji keyboard. You can just get rid of it entirely, I think. But
either thank you or you've got my hopes up for nothing. I'll find out shortly after we've recorded this. Okay.
I did want to talk about Apple Vision Pro.
You never mention Apple Vision Pro. What are you doing? So hang on. You've previously said there's not enough new content for it, but now you're saying there is. Or at least there's something new, right?
There is something new. It's a very small couple of things, but it's, again, we're seeing bits and pieces of what in the future should just be everyday things. But this is, it's novel because it's the first. It's a music video by The Weeknd, and it's really good. Yeah, I enjoy The Weeknd's music, and this was a fun music video, and I think this was really well done. The visuals were very well captured. Lots of surreal things, like you're in an ambulance, so you can look around. Lots of close-ups, again, on The Weeknd, so they're taking advantage of that kind of spatial 3D-ness. You get in close to a person, see a lot of detail, the 3D shape of their face, their nose. But then you get out, there's an ambulance, and you can look through the windows, and you see the 3D effect of, I'm looking through a window, not at a 2D image. And then they go out of the ambulance, and you're in a city, you're in a desert, there's horses. It's awesome. And then there's this Inception-like moment where the world folds over on itself, and it's just a lot of fun. It's really well done, and it's honestly probably, I think it's the first like fantasy-esque imagery we've seen in Vision Pro. Everything else so far has been documentary style. So just a good way of saying, hey, this technology is cool, and this is kind of us playing with it, and I like that it came out.
Okay, interesting. It's just, I don't know why that... I think because most music videos, you can argue that they're art, of course, and all things, but they are adverts, really. Is there any spatial video advertising yet on Apple Vision Pro?
I can't wait for my first spatial ad for Coke rendered with AI, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen the AI Coke ad? It's the worst thing that's ever existed. Yeah, they've made an ad with AI. It's bad. Very clearly AI and hot garbage. But there's another video coming as we record. If you're listening, it is out today, Friday. Brit Award-winning artist Ray will be performing a few songs with her 20-piece band.
Excellent.
Right? So R&B, jazz, and pop. This is not, because the original one, what was that? Ariana Grande? Am I remembering that correctly?
Not sure, but
I have it open in front of me.
Right. Suddenly I miss not having an Apple Vision Pro, but I think I'll get over it the next time I look at the price. Yeah.
But anyway, there was that original. I'm gonna be an idiot if I'm saying the wrong person, but I'm pretty sure it's Ariana Grande. It was that studio experience where she's singing different songs, and it's kind of like you're watching her record an album, and she's playing on the piano and talking to her people, and it's very intimate. You're very close to everyone, and in this very tight space with everyone playing instruments, and it was enjoyable. I really enjoyed that. And then this isn't a sequel to that, but I think it's in the same vein. It's called the Concert for One series, where you're kind of sat in a space with this artist and they're singing at you, and it sounds cool. I'm here for it. It'll be fun.
I realised actually the reason I thought about advertising is there was news this week that I didn't fully understand to do with Apple. Is it in Apple News? Yes, Apple News Plus. That Apple News Plus includes adverts. I mean, I don't really notice that many of them. Usually it's ads for publications I don't subscribe to, but they're in there. And now Apple is selling those ad spaces itself instead of presumably hiring someone else to sell them. Should I care about this? Do you know?
If you use Apple News, you've probably noticed that the ads are actual terrible garbage. All of them. They're the worst of the worst of the internet.
We have talked about this before. Yes, I remember now. But I still don't see that many of them for some reason. Maybe because I'm outside the US, so there are lots of things I don't get that are good. Perhaps their advertising market's different as well.
But the ads are bad, and Apple, I think, has been renting these ad spots out through this other subsidiary. But what they're going to do now is sell the ads themselves. And what I'm hoping is they don't just continue to sell to these garbage companies. What I'm hoping for is Apple takes this as an opportunity to get some actual good ads. Because there is such a thing as good ads. I know there's... Yeah. I even spent most of my 20s wanting to get rid of every ad in the world. I never wanted to see an ad again. I had that mentality, and I understand it deeply. But I've grown to understand a little bit of this world. It's useful in some ways. Advertising can work and be useful. It's just been abused to the point that we want to get rid of it. But when advertising is good, it works. It's nice. And I think that Apple can do, like, we all enjoy a good Apple commercial, for example. Apple does a good job. Or there's actual tasteful ads or billboards or promotions that, like, make sense, that look good, that don't take away from the experience. Like, I hate watching television and having a dental commercial come on at 10x the volume to get your attention. Terrible and abusive and awful, right? Whereas you can actually just have a commercial that says, hey, this thing's cool. Go to this website. It's a thing that exists. And believe it or not, there was a time that you didn't know what X thing was without that advertisement. Absolutely. They do work. They do serve a purpose. So there are people out there who say Apple News shouldn't have any ads. I don't think that's realistic because of the way Apple has to pay the companies that are on there. When you're viewing their content, they have to have a financial incentive, and Apple isn't going to just pay them out of pocket. So I think that Apple has an opportunity to do something cool here.
When I studied marketing, it was made very clear to me that there is actually a clear difference between marketing and advertising. The purpose of marketing is you've got this product, how to get it to someone that it would like it, that it would be useful to. Advertising is more like shouting at everybody, and it feels like we just get a lot of shouting than we did direction. So I read this and thought, okay, but now you've actually given me a little hope, although you've also put in my mind the fact that being in the UK, I still don't get the daily crossword and Apple News, and I believe Sudoku is now in there as well for America and maybe Canada as well, but not for anywhere else. So there's that, there's Apple Card even. It's so, the UK is being badly treated now by Apple, and it's just not fair. And on that bombshell, You were saying about people could correct you on things. Where can people find you if for some reason they know it isn't Ariana Grande, it's somebody else?
Well, funny enough, this has changed, and I wanted to mention this here. I'm still on Mastodon, don't worry, but I did create a Blue Sky account. So we talked about, I think I even mentioned it last episode, of just like, I don't know how I feel about this. It seems like it's blowing up. I'm going to look into it. Well, I looked, and it's weird, actually. I was reading about it, and I was like, you know what? I should at least reserve my handle. You never know. I'm a public enough figure that someone might be like, haha, I'm going to go get his username and mess with this guy or whatever. So I was just like, I'm going to go reserve my username and see what this looks like. And it's actually really interesting. I didn't join it before because I didn't want to deal with Jack Dorsey, and he's actually been long gone. So I discovered that first off, and that's what made me actually want to look into this, because I don't want anything to do with that person. I would honestly never create a handle if he was still part of this company. He's long gone. It's 20 people running this little upstart, and they are now over 20 million users. It's madness. They're dealing with an influx of 1 million users a day. We're seeing people there that I never saw on Mastodon. Mark Hamill joined the other day. I'm seeing Gary Whitta, a lot of good writers, a lot of good directors, Patton Oswalt, just names. I get it. Social media maybe not great for following celebrities, but I enjoy seeing what those people say and do. Use social media however you use it, but that's just something that I enjoy following sometimes, as long as they're not too abusive of posters.
I can actually tell you there's one more person you've heard of who joined Blue Sky, me. A couple of friends here in the UK joined it, said go on, have a go, and I thought, why not? I got to admit, when I looked in it first, it looked like Twitter, I thought. It's exactly like Twitter. And some of the first comments I saw, I didn't appreciate at all. But then another friend, actually from the States, was telling me that you can subscribe to feeds of certain types of news. And she gave me a list of these things that she'd done, and she's right. It's a much more interesting read than I thought, although I'm hours into it practically. I'm not really using it much enough yet at all.
I need to follow you, and because I didn't know you joined, but I wanted to break down a couple of things real quick. Just take a couple minutes to discuss it, because this is so different, right? So Twitter was Twitter, and then it became X, and now we're leaving it, and I don't think it's ever going to get back to being a useful place to be. I think anyone who's serious about having a community or making money on the internet or whatever your goals are with social media, X no longer represents those goals, and the sooner you leave and start rebuilding your social graph on another website, the better off you'll be. I won't tell you where to go, but honestly, Mastodon and Blue Sky are great, and I think out of the three, Threads just don't even bother. It's Facebook. It's the same thing as Facebook. It's just, don't do it. It's not worth it. It is actually getting worse by the day. Anyway, of the four, but ignoring Threads, of the three, Blue Sky I think is the one. I think it's going to win here, because and as long as they can maintain their growth, and I think they are. I think this is, people are concerned because there's investors, that has to do with crypto, whatever. Sure, but there's always reasons to be concerned with any kind of social media company, but their foundation is so strong. So Mastodon was this nerdy website that was started by nerds for nerds, and it's Federation. And I think Federation is ultimately the future of social media. Blue Sky even bought into that slightly. They didn't go to the Fediverse, but they're creating their own federated version of social, which is interesting. I won't get into all that, but whatever. That's why a lot of people on Mastodon don't like Blue Sky, because it didn't federate. But anyway, they're very tribal about this.
So I got to say, I don't understand Federation.
So Federation is this idea that if you're on Mastodon, you can follow people on Threads. You can also create an account on PixelFed, which is their Instagram competitor, but you can also see the PixelFed feed in a Mastodon client, right? There's a YouTube client, right? And you can sign in with your Mastodon account to this YouTube client, and it's just all a universal. You have a username, and you sign in everywhere, and you follow everyone everywhere, and choose your client, choose your thing. There's a TikTok-like client called Loops coming out that's being worked on that is also federated. So it all works together. It's this idea that instead of silos like Facebook and YouTube and MySpace and Twitter, whatever. It's kind of a universe of social media. They're all acknowledging and nodding in each other's directions, but they're distinct in their UI and user base, but you can follow everyone. If you don't want a Loops account and you have a Mastodon account, you can still follow people on Loops from Mastodon, right? So that's the idea. Anyway, Mastodon is complicated. It's basically the Linux of these things. People who really know what they're doing can take advantage of it and get a lot done with it, but to anyone else, it might as well be written in hieroglyphics. The fact that when you join, you have to choose your server is a step too far for most people, and they don't want anything to do with it. So Mastodon has grown a lot, and it will continue to grow, and I don't think it's going anywhere. It's going to be Tumblr, is if I had to give it an analogy. It's going to be Tumblr.
About Tumblr, yeah.
Which still exists, to be fair to Tumblr, which is also federating, funny enough. It's going to be a Tumblr where the nerds, like certain niches, are going to grow big communities there. I think the developer niche is going to be huge and will always be huge on Mastodon unless it explodes, or maybe they find Blue Sky to be a better replacement. But it is going to always be a niche social media. You're never going to see Gary Whitta or Mark Hamill on Mastodon, for example. So jumping over to Blue Sky. So that's Mastodon. Go make an account. If you haven't yet, it's worth it. There's a community there, especially us Apple people. We're there, Apple journalists and stuff like that. But you won't see like a Mastodon account for Apple or for Beats Music, right? So like that's not happening. There's no corporate presence on Mastodon, which might be a positive for some people. So on to Blue Sky. Blue Sky is basically Twitter, which not X, which is its own thing now. It's become its own entity. I'm talking about 2010 Twitter. It is new. Everyone's joining it. It's growing very quickly. And all of the people that you would never see on Mastodon, but maybe on Threads, are coming to Blue Sky. And that's what's interesting about this. I'm seeing people I haven't seen since I quit X, and I'm following them. I'm seeing... And it's not just that. You have the user base. 20 million now, increasing by 1 million a day, probably 30 million by the end of next week. Who knows? It's growing quickly. I know that's small numbers compared to something like Threads, but there is data out there suggesting that Blue Sky is about to surpass Threads' daily active users, because active users is different from account numbers. And Blue Sky is a very active community. Anyway,
I can actually tell you, because while you were saying that, I looked for you and I have found you on Blue Sky as @hilly.tech. So I'm now following you. But also, I found out that people have been following me in the few days since I joined. And I looked at, and obviously, I'm talking to you, I don't want to be rude, but I clicked on some to look vaguely familiar names. And everyone I clicked on had feminist in their bio. And I'm thinking, these are my people. I like it here already. So, thank you. You got me to go back. I will do more on Blue Sky.
Is feminist in their bio, or is that a label? Because there are so many features. So I want to break them down. Guys, it'll be a chapter. You can skip it. So Blue Sky... Yeah, Blue Sky has so many features that I think every social media should steal. First of all, labels. So you can... 1,000-foot view, there are lists. You can generate a list of people, all right? So every person has the ability to make a list. You can make a starter pack, which is something you can share. I actually made a blog post on my personal blog. It's pinned on my account right now as you listen, and it's filled with information about Blue Sky, why I made this decision, and it has a list of starter packs, and I add to it every day of starter packs of tech, black people in tech, tech meme leaderboards, developers, designers, all these starter packs and they max out at 150 people. I have followed 700 people because of these starter packs, and it's excellent. Right. And what's great is I can follow 700 people because I can create feeds. They sell out, that not sell, but it's all free. They have algorithmic feeds in the Discover section, like you're choosing a suit to wear. Oh, you only want to see the top posts liked by your mutuals. Add that feed to your list, and you could scroll to different feeds. It's a top scroll bar. So your basic discovery feed is algorithmic. Then you have your timeline feed, which is chronological. I've added a only posts feed, which is a feed without any reposts or likes or replies, which I use to catch up every morning because then I only see what people are talking about rather than what they're reposting. There's a feed for what's hot. There's a feed for all kinds of different feeds you can subscribe to and pin to your top bar. You can create your own personal feeds. And then these starter packs let you follow people. But the inverse is you can create block lists. And people are using algorithms and basically they're saying, for example, if anyone has a political term that is bad in their bio, they automatically get added to this list. And then you can say, and then you can subscribe to this list and say automatically mute everyone in this list or automatically block everyone in this list if you want to go nuclear. I've actually done a couple of these block lists. I don't block automatically, but I do mute automatically, and then I'll see that they're muted and can open it and say, "Are you an awful person?" and then block them. So that's cool, and that actually has eliminated a lot of the potential hate on the platform because people are able to join and immediately block and remove the people that could cause them problems, which is excellent. We've seen a lot of the particular bad actors from X try to join to start some stuff and immediately get removed by the moderation team or at least get added to these block lists. So that's cool. And
okay,
then
you've sold me. I've got to go play with this.
And then part 3, I know I got to close, but there's one more really important one. Labels, and that's what we're getting back to. See, there's a labeling system. You can label people based on what they post. So, for example, there is a labeler that I follow that will let you know if someone posts a lot of anti-trans content or anti-LGBTQ content, and it will put it. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't alert them that you're doing this. You subscribe to the labeler, and when you're viewing their profile, it just shows up as a little sticker icon under their name, potential transphobic thing. And what's interesting is it's not perfect, okay? And you have to know this going in. It's not like, oh, automatically this person is transphobic. It just means that their content might have that in there. Does that mean that person is transphobic? No, it just means that maybe they've reposted something or said something, and you can take the time to look, and if you ever see something from someone with that label that is transphobic or something you don't want to see, then you block them, right? So yeah, it's a powerful tool set. There's so many things. They're adding features all the time, and they're growing all the time. So I just recommend everyone go give it a look, give me a follow, make your starter packs, and anyway, long story short, you can find me on Blue Sky. I'm very active there because I'm trying to build my follower base. I'm still on Mastodon, and you can email me at wes@appleinsider.com and tell me how wrong I am about everything.
Well, I think we should do is you mentioned your blog that had details about this. If you don't mind, I'll include a link to that because you told me so many things there. I'm not sure I took them all in, but I want to go play with them all. So I really follow you further.
Thanks. I really wanted to emphasize how different this is and how special it is. Right now it's in its early phases, and of course it's going to feel very exciting, and everyone's talking about how fun it is, and everyone on Blue Sky is talking about Blue Sky. It's in that phase. We'll have to see how it feels after that phase is done, but it does feel nice, and I want everyone to take part in that niceness.
I'm grateful for that because I really did. I mean, I had this other friend who persuaded me to try again. My first glance was, this is Twitter. So seeing that it isn't is good. But we'll include your Blue Sky link in there. I'll include mine, and I will try to remember to look into it. But
where else are you on the internet?
Thank you for asking. YouTube, 98 keys. Where in the world did I get that from? 58 keys. I've only made a couple of hundred videos under the name 58 keys. It's time I changed the number, clearly. 58 keys on YouTube or william@appleinsider.com. And actually, I think that's probably the best way. Emails, good for me. And you're about to add... Yeah.
Yes, William loves emails. And I wanted to say we got another great review from Bryden Cooper. I don't think I read this one before, but these things stagger out weirdly, right? It says this was posted before last episode, but it wasn't there. So if I did read this before, forgive me. You'll just get a second appearance. But Braden Cooper says, "Love the show. I just love the show. This is where I go for Apple News. I can't wait every week for the new episode every Friday." So great review. Thank you. Keep giving us those 5-star reviews or whatever you want to give us. We'll read them on the show. I like the feedback. You can tell us about it there. Email us. post on Blue Sky, whatever you want to do. Let us know what you think of the show, and we're always happy to hear the comments.
That's very nice. Thank you, Braden Cooper. That was very good of you. And also, actually, while I'm saying thank you to you for listening, and thank you to our sponsors this week, 1Password and Masterclass. So actually happens two of my absolute favourites. So there they were. Thank you for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. If you are an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, then just hang on for a second, because it sounds like Wes and I have very different approaches to Christmas gifts. One sending, one receiving. But that'll be an Apple Insider Plus next. If you're not an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, well, join us. You can. There'll be links in the show notes. You basically subscribe through Patreon or through Apple Podcast subscriptions, and it would be lovely to have you with us. But it'll be lovely to have you with us next week as well. So thank you for listening again. Speak to you next week or in a few months' time.
We'll talk then.